Welcome to Rich Conversations. We are in the Art Institute of Chicago right now, and I am joined by the perceptive, the insightful Ken Ferguson. He is returning to the show after like 3.5 years, maybe? I don't know.
Ish, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like episode 85, and we're on 300 something now.
Jeez, I feel like, wow, 300 and something.
Yeah.
Wow. So a lot of episodes. Show some diligence, really hanging in there and doing it.
That's one way to put it, for sure.
For sure. I guess 2022 or 2021, I'm sorry.
Was it 21 or 22? This was like episode 85. And we recorded in my bedroom in our apartment. We were living together. After like multiple takes in the living room with different tables and different lighting and
It's where we introduced multiple angles to your process.
Yeah. Ken has been a very influential part of this whole apparatus, I guess. Sometimes in direct ways and sometimes in indirect ways. This setup right here that we have, you guys can't see it because you're on the other side of it. But we have 3 tripods, 3 different camera angles. Our microphones are iPhones. It's all set up to be fast, agile, quick, light, so we can go anywhere, do anything. And a lot of that was inspired by Ken. Ken, when we were living together, would always make these contraptions, and he would talk about how it's not about the cost of a piece of equipment. It's not about having the highest standard of camera or lighting or audio. It's first about the content, but then it's also about using tools creatively. Creatively. They don't need to be expensive. They just need to fit what you're trying to do. And so this whole setup has been a big inspiration from Ken. I've learned a lot from Ken. I don't know if I ever expressed to you this stuff.
I don't. Well, I mean, in ways, but I'm just happy that someone listens to me, or I say a lot of things. We call it cuts to the wind, and they just drift off and maybe out in one ear, out the other for other people. Sometimes I just feel like I'm just yapping. But living with you, I'd see you, writing things down, to the point where I was kind of like, oh, F this guy. He's like stealing all my ideas. But, after a while, it was just like, I spew out a lot of knowledge, I drop a lot of jewels, all that stuff like that. And it's good that somebody's picking them up, and utilizing them and making it happen for themselves. Although I will say it is cool to have the expensive equipment.
Ken does a whole bunch of different things. He's primarily a creative artist, animator, illustrator. We worked on a book together, Millie Moves to the Farm, a children's picture book. Man of many talents, and Ken applies basic concepts that he learns in kind of one area and then applies them to all other areas. And he uses his mind to figure out how to do this and then how to do that, and applying processes from different fields to other ones. So while he does painting and drawing, illustration, he's also running heavy-duty lighting equipment and cameras, and he's got gigs all over the U.S. and it's cool to see. Ken is a very influential person. I will say, probably what I've learned most from Ken is not directly what he says. It's more so observing what he does and just kind of filing stuff away. Yeah.
Wow, that means a lot, everything that you said, because I don't have time to necessarily sit there and think about all that stuff about myself. in my own time. In fact, it's always I battle with myself of like, am I really this guy or am I pretending? We call it imposter syndrome, but it's always nice when someone comes back around and then like lets you know all this stuff. Not to get sidetracked, but Dave and Sandra, when I run into them, it's been a while, but when I would, Dave would just like berate me with all these compliments because I got him and Sandra drawing every day for when I was doing the Inktober. Yeah, they would join me on the Discord and draw and paint, and I watched them like improve. Where like the rest of us like stopped and moved on to other things, like Sandra kept drawing and all that stuff like that. Excuse me. And they both express like how beneficial that is to their like day to day, just drawing. Helps them think. Take a break from thinking. Everything. All of the above. Drawing helps just dilute, focus, relax. Because especially for them, it's not a big deal like it is for me, and so where I could be very critical of myself, they're just drawing like kids, and no judgment, just basic, and just keep it going. And it's really good. But yeah, it's really nice for you to compliment me, man. I appreciate it.
Well deserved. There's something I'm thinking about more is my compliment ratio. Like, am I giving out as many compliments as I'm receiving? And not that maybe society would just be just a little bit more elevated if we just went out of our way to compliment each other a little bit more. Whether it's, I like your necklace, I like your shades, I like your watch, I like the way you carry yourself. Like, it's taking the time to notice something just small in a person and letting them know. I feel like we're all like this all the time, and we're in our heads, and like you said with the imposter syndrome and stuff, it's maybe something we need more of, is just like people paying attention and noticing and appreciating just different aspects of people.
Definitely people closer to you for sure. Complimenting people passing by and stuff like that might be a stretch. Like, people can bend that fabric a lot and make it out to be like sinister to a certain degree, but if you see something, you will, just for safety measures, if you see something, say something,
that's a great point with like publicly, and also people you're close with and you have deeper relationships with deserve more of that attention as well.
And we're usually more critical of the people in our circle than passerbyers and all that stuff like that, and we tend to focus on the negative aspects instead of giving people grace for their mess ups or whatever, or their lack thereof, and just really what's the word, I don't know, just kind of like focus in on like the things that they're doing well or something, just to reinforce that. We tend to reinforce negative behaviors by highlighting it all the time, and you didn't do this right, stuff like that. But letting people know where they fell short, but not condemning them is one thing. But also highlighting where they were successful or what you liked, all that stuff like that. This all comes from drawing and painting, critique sessions, all this stuff. Like,
Do you find you think it's better? Motivation is more probable from positive reinforcement rather than negative reinforcement?
Motivation,
Motivation to continue whatever journey or pursuit someone's on.
Ask me that question again.
Okay. Do you think motivation to pursue... Do you think motivation in the pursuit of one's path or journey or whatever activity is on that, within that journey, is more probable through positive reinforcement or negative reinforcement?
Both. Both, you know. They say, well, I don't know if they say it, but I've heard it around here and there, and I'm probably butchering it, but, you know, especially in a dating relationship, you know, instead of like you break up with your person and then instead of crawling into your hole and growing mushrooms and mold all over yourself, you know, elevate yourself, get better, you know, and like, you know, work in areas where you were faulty and stuff like that, and just keep progressing your life, because that's the best revenge is like, you know, this is what you lost, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm out here now, this type of dude doing these type of things that you didn't give me the time of day to like explain where I'm going or looked over, blah blah blah. But in a positive way, I seen a YouTube, don't know where it was or how, probably a YouTube short, but there was like a study done, and they took a group of kids and split them into like multiple different groups, and they gave them math or some kind of educational work, and they gave one group verbal positive reinforcement, another group no verbal or any kind of positive reinforcement, and then the third group reinforcement by like high fives and physical touch.
Okay. So what was
the result? Was the people with the physical touch did a lot better than the people with the verbal, and the verbal stayed the same. You know, they didn't elevate or decline, and then of course you can assume that the group with no reinforcement whatsoever like fluctuated, mostly doing bad.
Huh, interesting. Physical touch, when appropriate. So, okay, something I want to revisit. One of the clips from our previous episode was about the difference between Eastern and Western storytelling. If we could kind of revisit that briefly and re-emphasize that. It's a very, very interesting thing that it's probably one of the most profound things that have influenced me in my thinking of like developing an image of the world affected by history in a way, you know?
Yeah, and the difference between Eastern and Western storytelling is ingrained in the societies that reside in those, you know, I can't even speak, hemispheres, you know, where going into now, like Eastern storytelling is like Journey to the East, about a monk who's sent to retrieve Buddhist scriptures, because the society that he's living in are essentially slaves to their own desires, if I put it lightly, you know, lustful, greed, all the seven, you know. And so this monk is sent out, and he's not given, but along the journey he meets certain characters that assist him on his journey, which all of them are all atoning for their own sins, essentially, for whatever they did. One being the Monkey King. He's probably like the main familiar character out of all of them, but the Monkey King, very very self-righteous, violence, powerful, agile, a monkey, and throughout the journey, they meet other people that assist on the collective, as a collective, on the journey to succeed and like obtain these scriptures. Whereas Western storytelling is about the individual. The Iliad, Odysseus set sail with thousands of nameless men, only to be the only one returning that has a name. So, and he was a king, all that stuff. But it was all, that story's like about him and him only, with a few side characters here and there that assist, whatever, but they either die or stay where they were, where they met, just passerbyers. But now that I'm like kind of breaking it down, there is some collectivism in there, a little bit, but it's not highlighted.
Yeah.
That's where we get all of our Marvel characters and stuff like that. Although we see them teaming up more than ever before these days than in the past. It is usually mostly about the individual and their accomplishments, and not the many that assisted them to get there.
Yeah, it's like the difference between starting and ending. The Eastern storytelling takes a main character, and then along the journey meets all the different people, and then at the end, it's many. Mm-hmm. So it goes from one to many in the celebration of the journey or whatever. The Western storytelling aspect starts with many and ends with one. And so it's definitely allowed me to think about, well, if I'm a character in my own life or in the world, what kind of journey do I want to go on? Do I want to be among many and be the last one standing? Or do I want to meet people along the way? And at the end of the journey, it's all together. So yeah, that's been a really insightful aspect I've thought a lot about.
And I think last time,
yeah,
for sure. And I think last time I said the wrong name. I think I said Journey to the West, which is like a German book, and you bought it. Did you read it?
Yeah, not enough where I remember what I read. Yeah, Journey to the East by Hermann Hesse.
Oh, is that what it was?
Yeah.
Oh, so I'm still saying the wrong name.
Yeah, maybe it's something I revisit. I gotta see if I moved a lot of my books. Trying to think. Yeah.
Oh, I seen a quick short of you lifting. I think were all your journals.
Yeah.
That I was around when you first started doing that, and seeing all of this that you have documented of your day-to-day lives, your thoughts, all that stuff like that. Yeah. I thought that was super cool to see that. Yeah. Start with just one little sentence and how it could build. Yeah. I'm curious, how has that? I know you're the interviewer, but I'm just curious, how has that it's an
open conversation.
For sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
How has that shaped your journey thus far from 2020? We started doing Millie
early 2019.
Yeah, okay, yeah. And I believe that's kind of when, well, at least that's when I noticed that you were journaling every day.
Yeah, I was just kind of on this growth journey, I would say, starting with a near-death experience in 2018.
Yes, yeah.
Jump from a brain tractor, and it's like, how do I want to live a better life. Life is going to end. Time is short. How do I live it best? And I really didn't know before this. You just kind of browse around aimlessly on the internet, and you run into stuff like 10 steps of blah, 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 blah. And it's all this nonsense. Really, any journey you're going on, you got to start from within and follow. What I did is follow my curiosity. So I wasn't a big reader before this, actually. And I'd go to the library, and the maximum you could check out at a time was 50 books. And I would have 50 books just like stacked around, and I would just start reading everything, all different kinds of genres. I didn't read what people told me to read. I didn't read, oh, here are the 15 classics you have to read before you die kind of thing. It was like, what am I curious about? Well, I'm going to read that, and I'm going to read that. You know, it could be art, it could be poetry, it could be nonfiction, it could be fiction, it could be all these different things. In addition, I got a membership here at that Art Institute.
Yeah.
And since 2018, I've probably been here over 200 times. I've done the calculations. I come here probably between twice a week and every other week, probably. So over 5 years, I would put it right up there. And I always knew, or I would always hear, you know, journaling is good for you. Start with 5 minutes a day, blah, blah, blah. And at the same time, Colin O'Brien was really getting into kind of breathing and meditations.
I remember,
And I reread, after reading a lot of books, I remembered, hey, I really enjoyed this book, Sacred Hoops by Phil Jackson. It's basically the story of the Chicago Bulls in their first three-peat and kind of the philosophy he instilled in the team that led to that success. And it was a lot of mindfulness. He brought kind of meditation into professional sports, where when we're on the basketball court, if the five of us think as one, we'll defeat five players thinking for five players. So you clear your mind, practice just clearing the mind so that you're not thinking about the last shot you took, or what's happening after the game, or what's going on in your own life. It's right here, right now, being aware of what is happening and getting everybody on the same page where they could see the same things and just kind of react to it. And I thought, if Michael and Kobe could do this stuff, like, I'm gonna do it.
For sure.
So that's when I started meditation and then journaling. And then by the end of 2019, I was starting to really work in these concepts where when COVID hit, it was like, all right, now let's really stick to something, right? And it just kind of snowballed to where, you know, I would start with like 5-10 minutes a day journaling. What really changed, so then I was doing that, and what kind of shifted was when you, me, and Bones went to Miami, and we stayed at this Airbnb, and there was this courtyard with palm trees, and
Very nice.
We're in Chicago. It's colder, it's gray, maybe not today, but I was like, I would go out there, I kind of had the same breakfast every day. I would eat breakfast and then be in this courtyard, and you and Bones were doing something else usually or something.
Just floating around.
Yeah. But I'm in this courtyard, and it's like 80 degrees. The sun is on me, there's palm trees, and I have my journal out. And that's when I started I'm just letting my mind wander. Why should I set a timer for 5-10 minutes? Really, what this is meant to do is just explore my thoughts and emotions and ideas. What's going on? Let's kind of investigate this a little more. So since that trip, I really, with the journaling, just let it. I have a blank sheet of paper every single day, and I just think about what's the biggest thing on my mind right now. And right now it's evaluating too what happened yesterday. So we take what happened yesterday. For example, like today's journaling. yesterday I booked a trip to New York because I need to work on a project. I need to get more photos for this project I'm working on. And so the day before was reaching out to my friends, trying to like put together this trip and kind of visualize what's gonna happen and what I need to do. And then today was kind of reflecting on it of like, that was really important, and now we're clearer, and now we can proceed forward knowing, okay, now New York's on the horizon. So it's like this big kind of block that's coming up, right? But I explore, it helps me just think about what's going on in my life and how I'm feeling, things, kind of reviewing actions, but not being too harsh about it. Trying to be like, okay, like this happened, I'm not exactly happy about it. More so like actions or habits or whatever. I'm like, okay, let that pass, and now we move forward. And it's usually 1 to 2 pages, but my mind just drifts off. Because I a lot of time, the main reason we do it is because we're clear in our thinking of how we approach the rest of the day. So by taking the time, I have a morning routine now that I've kind of figured out, and by giving that time to myself, the rest of the day is so easy. Because I'm very clear, and all the actions after that are precise. So while it's a chunk of time that I intentionally carve out, it makes everything else in life easier, because I'm thinking about my actions, kind of forecasting what needs to happen, what actions do need to happen, and just lets me reflect on the human experience to that, where I think we're on our 10th notebook now, and they're all the same. They're like moleskins that look like this, and then it's just kind of, so by the end of my life, hopefully a long life, and then we just have volumes of these. That's
Okay.
kind of what I do.
I tried.
I go to that same table that you've seen me at like every day.
Every morning,
It's still there, still do it,
I tried to journal, and I tried after working with you on Millie, and we're passing books around, and I guess this is where we began to talk about like awareness, essentially, not necessarily the book, but like just being aware of what's going on around us, instead of just like beelining it to this place and that place, and just eat, sleep, drink, and just rinse and repeat stuff. We started actually talking about life and what are we doing out here, and where was I going with that? I tried to journal myself. I bought a book from the dollar store. One day, wrote some stuff to myself. Never went back. I think drawing is more my thing, and learning how to like write and draw at the same time is where I'm at right now.
Okay.
Like, I don't keep an online journal or anything like that, but I have a bunch of checkbooks from Lincoln Station that I walk home with.
I've seen those. The guest checks. Those are great little notepads.
Definitely.
Just to like write down a little quick idea. Those of you who have ever worked service industry or have seen this, there'll be like servers will have these little, they say guest checks, and they're organized kind of like of different items, and you can write down what the person ordered, but they make great just scrap paper, and we get like a kind of a booklet of them. So. And I tape that stuff on my computer, and then I can refer back to what needs to be done. How am I feeling? Like, don't forget to do this, do that, all that stuff. But that is as far as writing daily has gone for me. I expanded on that. So there's the journaling, and I told you this last week when we met, that I've designed an external brain for myself, right?
You began to break it down.
Okay.
But do it again.
Okay, so we don't need to fully break it down. Basically, what I'm trying to do, I read this book called Getting Things Done, The Art of Stress-Free Productivity, David Allen. I'm very weary of business books because most of the time it's a lot of fluff. And most of the time, these business books are already saying fundamentals that I already know through studying philosophy and stuff. Business books could be trimmed down to about like 15 pages. So out of like a 250-page book, you really have to sift through and figure out, oh, okay, like this is, a lot of it's fluff just for publishers to sell books and make money. This book I knew is something, what I've struggled with is, I have everything in my head right now, everything I gotta do, and like, I'm like all over the place. And so after kind of a year after reading this book, I started with this year where I just create a system for myself to review my actions and progress. Because if you don't review, which I haven't, at other times, it's like harder to improve. And so I've taken part of my routine every morning during breakfast. I go on ESPN.com and I look at all the box scores of the sports that whatever season is going on. So right now it's basketball. So I'll go through each box score from the night before and just look at the numbers to see kind of what's happening. And it gives me kind of the story. So I started doing that with myself. And so I have Google spreadsheets where I have weekly action items. And then I break it down. I have a spreadsheet with daily action items. So it's breaking down the weekly items to something a little smaller, a little bit more manageable. These are more like daily shots. And then I have, of the weekly action items, I have it broken up into professional, habits, and personal. So the habits are 5 things: meditation, journaling, reading, writing, and diet, exercise, something like that. So I track everything I do, and I set standards of what is considered a completion. So like 4 out of 7 days exercising, that's 1 notch, right? So then of the weekly action items, I visualize it like a free throw attempts. I have to hit at least 70% of these.
Okay.
And then for the daily actions, it's almost like a box score of a basketball player, where it's like, okay, yesterday I did 10 out of 16.
Okay.
Which isn't great, but it's not bad at the same time. And then throughout the week, you just kind of see all these numbers to the point where, and then so at the end of the week, I either get a win or a loss.
Okay.
So it's very objective. And so far, after 2 months, my record's 1 and 7.
Okay.
But what those losses have done is identified problems, areas of improvement where it's very clear what we have to do to get better. And so I'll set aside, something this book emphasized was setting aside time for yourself to actually review the week and like what's going on. So that's been enjoyable. Like on Monday morning, I'll sit down, go over all the numbers. Did we win? Did we lose? What percentages do we have? And just kind of write and then answer certain questions I came up with. And what's shocking is that where I'm failing most right now is being social. That's led to most of the problems I'm experiencing, which is crazy. You would think it's not a problem for me to go write a book.
Yeah.
Not a problem.
Yeah.
But since COVID, I've kind of developed some poor habits as far as being social, hanging out with friends. And it really affects other aspects of my life.
Definitely.
And it's crazy. I was talking to my friend Joe yesterday, and I told him this, and he was like, yeah, dude, I told you that in December when you visited me. Like, I was like, yeah, I know. I've known this. But then to actually see the numbers and the objectivity of it, I'm like, oh, wow, I need to make some changes.
Yeah.
So now it's like gamifying my life in a way where it's enjoyable, but the main advantage of kind of designing this external brain is that I can be as present as possible right now. I don't have to worry about any other thing because I have a whole system and process that takes care of that. That I have specific times to check in and complete. So nothing is in my head. I'm just like free in a way.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. That's really nice because you made a whole game out of the whole thing. I'm like curious because
making life more fun that way. You know
for
what I
sure.
mean? Yeah.
And I mean, like, not everybody will think like, oh, numbers and doing all these calculations and ratios and percentages is fun. But for someone like me, the way I have my external brain is through like storyboarding and boarding everything out that like I need to get done or that I want to get done or where I'm trying to go, and I'm telling a story the whole way through.
Ooh, I like that.
You know, and storyboards are meant to be thrown away. They're not pretty pictures, and if this doesn't work, you remove the part that's not working and replace it with something that might do better, like a flow system. And I'm curious, how do we like take these methods that we do and share them in some kind of form of like an app or book? I mean, obviously we can do a book.
Yeah.
But like taking these things that we're doing for ourselves to have a better productive days, taking these things to companies, because I know a bunch of people running very specific parts of companies that are like very incompetent people, and they're getting paid just for showing up, you know, and it's like they're doing just enough to not get fired or have to be like
it seems
spotlighted.
like that's most of the population.
True. Just doing enough to get by. Small bunch of us trying to elevate our lives, and but not knowing why, other than what we, you know, the candy that the eye candy that we get on the internet. But like these like systems that we create just to have a productive, successful day, going into like all these little different departments in these companies, you know, and like figuring out these things so that you can
Like
find problems.
scaling it?
Not necessarily scaling it, but I think really finding problems is the best thing. Finding problems and solving them is like a best thing for any company, because it's nothing but problems, and not problems like.
That's most of life. It's just solving problems.
Exactly. Yeah. So you, I mean, you're already picking up what I'm putting down.
Yeah.
I'm the money part in my head is like, you know, kind of running, and it's like, how do I, you know, break into these places with this, you know, almost like, I don't know what you call them, but those people that come in and they watch you work, and they
consultants or something.
Almost like that.
What do consultants even do? I don't know.
They consult whatever. You know, I'm sure there's different categories.
I used to date this consultant, and I would ask her some questions, and she's like, "It's $400." I was like, "What?" She's like, "Yeah, it's my rate." And she's like, "I'm just joking." I'm like, "Oh, okay."
That's funny. But they be out here like that though.
Oh yeah.
You know, even me sometimes. Especially if I'm working with someone who's kind of making me back and forth, and not able to articulate, and I'm asking the questions, and they're sending me stuff, but and then I have to make something in order to get new answers. to make sure I'm going in the right direction.
Yeah.
And then they, oh no, I meant this. Sorry, oh I meant that. And, and that's $200 when I'm done. When we're finally done, $200-$300 for making me jump through these hoops.
And that's a matter of like, what would you say, like being more specific ahead of time?
Right, yes.
Like having a better understanding of what someone wants? Or,
Yeah. I had a client once that articulated everything through sound effects. And I had to like decode that. Like, what do you mean by and and it's like sound effects and texture words.
Yeah.
I need this crispy, smooth. And it's like, I don't think crispy as smooth. What I'm saying? You turn over the back of a Crunch bar, it looks like a pre-pubescent kid, with all these acne on it. So, like that, but it's crispy, but it's not smooth.
Yeah.
So I had to like decode this guy and figure out what exactly he was trying to say, because he couldn't say. He could I don't even know if there was anything he could say, honestly.
You don't have access to his brain, so you're trying to ask questions so that you can find common ground. And you mentioned before, you use the example, when I say apple, what comes to your head?
Yes.
And it could be a red delicious apple, it could be a green apple, it could be the word apple, it could be the company apple, it could be all these different things.
Definitely, yeah. And that helps me know like how their thinking is. Is it technical because they're thinking the word? Is it very like washed out with all this company branding and they thinking Apple the company? Is it a red apple? Is it real? Is it cartoon? Is there a bite out of it? Is there a worm sticking out of it? All these things like help me gauge where they're at and how to approach like my questioning after that. So very interesting how the brain works, I guess.
What's something you're curious about recently? What's Ken curious about right now?
It's a lot of things, but I'm trying to think what stands out of this like pile, and I think it's mostly how do I get from point A to B. And most of my curiosity revolves around myself, and then when I figure those things out, it radiates and helps the world, or at least I like to think. But I got all this work going on right now, as we talked about before. I'm doing production work. I'm just a humble illustrator out here, and I have friends in all these places, but everything translates from illustration, film, storyboarding, camera work, all that stuff. Like, I can figure it out. So I'm really kind of on a crossroads right now. It's like, do I sink my teeth into this and really learn the ins and outs, or do I, stick to illustration work, animation, character design, or is there something that that by juggling both will bridge the two together in some form, which there is. The decision is trying, if I really want to be on that level of doing live images on a jumbotron video wall during like shows and making graphics and stuff for that. I feel like it's like completely a miss from where I originally was like, oh, I'm starting this artist journey, or at least I realize I'm on this journey.
Yeah.
But it's not too far off. Like, is it about the money, or is it about telling stories and giving back to all the years and years of storytelling that have came to me and it inspired me to even begin this journey in the first place. I don't know if one side's like selling out and the other one's like following, the foggy dream. One that involves a lot of money, stupid money. My buddy bought a Tesla in cash. He's only working 66 out of the 300 days, the 360 days, however many days are in a year. And he's going to be good, through those 60 days. It's like, do I want that? That does give you more time to focus on the things that I want to do, focus on art, focus on drawing and painting. Or do I want to be I'm a boring dude. It's not that I want a boring life, but I don't want to be in like the limelight. I don't want to, although like people that come and visit me and I take them places, they're like, oh, you're super popular or whatever, blah, blah, blah. It's like, dude, I just go to places. I worked in the restaurant industry, so I know all these people working in all these places. And I make sure to try and stay in communication with them, not necessarily because of the job, but just I want to keep my friends close. And not to jump off to another platform from what I was talking about, but not having Lincoln Station also changed like my social life. And yesterday I went to Irish Eyes. Ian's working, Kelly is there, Henry, not Hank, but Henry Curtis is there, and Bob. And Bob is there. And I'm like, oh man, I'm walking into Lincoln Station right now. Yeah. So it was like really fun, to where they got me to stay for a couple drinks. I was just there for one, and I was gonna keep moving, but I stayed because that was like family, Yeah. So I'm figuring out what's important to me right now. I don't know if there's like anything you can expound upon on that, but these are the problems that I'm trying to solve, and I'm curious, like, to what end am I going to be doing these things?
I think there's something that all your problems spawn from. And it's a skill that maybe you haven't considered before. But Ken is really reliable. Ken is very reliable. And I think more and more that reliability is one of the greatest skills. Mm-hmm. So you're probably getting more and more opportunities because people know you're reliable.
True, yeah.
You show up and you are true to your word, and
there's something about showing up and like a superhero, I guess, and being able to say I am here, is like very important to me. I can't say there was a lack of that in my life, but maybe so. Still digging on that, childhood trauma stuff and excavating. Ever since my mom passed away, I'm learning more about my dad and family in general. That like, oh, okay, this is where that comes from. That lack of this and all that stuff like that. But that stands out. One thing that stands out is people not responding as fast as other people would like you to respond. If your lady is like, can you do the trash? She means right now, but we don't communicate that, yes, I'll get it in a sec. Well, we might say I'll get it later or whatever, but the sense of urgency isn't there. So I treat everybody's call for me as urgent, which is, uplifting and destructive to my my life, all at the same time. Not that I'm like worried about what people are going to say about me when I die. I'm starting to care less and less about it. But I waver between becoming a villain by saying no, and maintaining, this not necessarily reputation, but just staying a reliable guy for people that need things, that need help and stuff like that. And a lot of people take it for granted, and I try not to I just try to treat people like people, and I've always been taught that you treat others how you want to be treated, but it only goes one way. So,
All right, I got one last question for you.
For sure.
What's something you're inspired by recently?
It really stands out right now. That is a really good question, because I haven't felt inspired really in a while. I'll tell you what, I'll start with this. You did give me a lot of praise in the beginning, and I'd like to return some of that in that I do often find myself in positions where I don't get to extract as much from others that they can extract from me. But the little stuff that I do scrape off is things that I apply to my own life. So living with you, where you had everything in its place, you pretty much took over the entire apartment. I had no decorations. No decorations. Like I was in my cave, all the way in the back. My previous roommate, we moved into that place in a rush. We were getting put out of our apartment and needed to find something in 3 days. Well, we had a whole month, but he was on a tuba gig and all stuff like that. He didn't get back until 3 days until we had to be out. And in those 3 days, he found a place that was desirable for him because his girlfriend was up the street. And I didn't care. I was like, I just need to be able to do my work.
Yeah.
So we moved. The place was we never unpacked anything. It was just like full of boxes, still packed. He never came home. I just had the place to myself. I'm trying to think, how do I even have internet? I think I was just using my hotspot on my phone.
Yeah, I think so.
And yeah, I didn't have you brought me into the light coming in, but your efforts to stay organized and like the cleanliness and stuff like that touched me in a way that like I try to keep that stuff going for myself. I don't necessarily make my bed every morning, but having a routine, or at least like I don't let things go undone beyond 24 hours. I might put some dishes in the sink, come back to it later, but I won't let it go beyond to the next day.
Yeah.
So I make sure to like tidy things up before I end my day, before I jump into bed, before I shut everything off, so that when I wake up, everything's in order. I don't know why that stands out, out of like our living situation, out of everything else that we did together. But that was like kind of like the most important thing that came out of that, because it is important to have your things in order, unless you bring a lady around, or just company in general. More importantly, ladies. So, you
want to check out my record player?
Yeah. I mean, you have a whole list, and you have your guests pick out a song.
Vinyl records are organized.
All that kind of stuff. That says something about you. That says something about life. It says a lot, and about your organization, how you want your brain clear. Everything that you do comes out in these like list forms and just having in boxes. And there's nothing wrong with that. And that's what I learned, So I write lists. What do I got to get done today? What's important? What's not important? What can be put off a few more days? Type stuff. Now I know this isn't all the stuff that's like inspiring me right now, but this is stuff that keeps me going in general. I'm not watching anything new. I haven't discovered anything that scratch everything I done just spewed out. There's an artist named Nathan Folks. I discovered him on a Pirate Bay download of Schoolism, and he worked on Prince of Egypt. This was his first kind of his like break-in role into the animation film industry, and he was the I'm not specific on what his role is, but he was like more of a color artist and designing the looks of what these scenes were going to have as far as color and mood goes. And Prince of Egypt was like kind of almost before the digital boom of like everything being done on things like Photoshop and stuff like that. So he was hand painting these things, and the work is good. I say go on Pinterest, look up concept art of Prince of Egypt, amazing stuff. But I've been so now I pay for Schoolism instead of having this torrent, and I've been going through his classes, and the way he teaches and the way he speaks, and the knowledge that he's able to just spew out as he's working, and while also telling me about his thoughts and what he's doing, that has been inspirational for me thus far this year. And I check in and out, but you haven't seen any of my new work. I've been like hiding it from the world, but a lot of it has been from studying this guy's work and taking his courses and applying it to what I do as a character artist, storyteller. Nathan Folks.
So it's like being inspired by both our friends and other people out in the world, but the kind of thing that brings them together is that as ourselves, we're always trying to learn, and we can take inspiration from these sources.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And for me, like I learned a lot of that organizational stuff from living with my friend Joe and hosting Airbnb guests and having everything very meticulous and everything kind of for a reason. But then other people too. It's like we're all kind of sharing in knowledge in a way. So
yeah, a lot of that. Well, I would say it's missing, but I'm not in every friend group, every circle that's out here. And I hope that a lot of that is happening. And it's crazy, but I'm going to bring it up again. But so far this year, no, since the end of Lincoln Station, for now. The thing that keeps being brought up is that you're the sum of the 5 people that you hang out with the most. And I've been thinking about that since November to now, and really trying to pick my team wisely on who do I continue on, like people from Lincoln Station, people from college, people that I've met here throughout Chicago. Like I don't know if I want people in my group that's like me, because I'm even working out with a guy that we live entirely different lives, but we connect over, me wanting to be better, and this guy I had isolated. He got rid of all his friends and then started working out and stuff like that, and then became a trainer. And then knowing him I used to film him and he performed, but I had nothing in common with him until he started advertising that he's doing training and stuff like that. So I reached out, and so now I train with him every other day. He gives me a good rate, and I can use the export facility because I'm his guest.
Yeah.
And we work out together. And he's not. Well, he's making sure I got the proper form, because I said that's most important to me, proper form and all that stuff before I start going heavy weights and making really big gains. But had he, not transitioned his life, we probably wouldn't have connected on that level and going to the gym together and doing the thing and sticking to it. So I'm looking for more people that have the will to stick to it, and also the willingness to put out a hand, and reach for others. So that's what my circle needs to consist of. I believe right now. So
cool.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing everything. Thanks for being here,
dude. Thanks for having me on again.
Of course. Next time it won't be so far away.
Definitely.
So great it's always great just talking with you, catching up, and I'm glad we recorded it.